Hey everybody, my name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title podcast. This is going to be episode 2 of the Do Hard Things series. And today we're talking about moving long distances. Last week we talked about climbing mountains, climbing hills, hiking long ways. Today I'm really going to talk about running and how running changed my life and how I don't currently run much anymore and what I do instead of that. And I'm going to talk about running a marathon and why I think everybody should pick something at some point in your life that maybe is not the most enjoyable thing, but it's hard, and that's why you picked it. So I grew up athletic. I played basketball and actually ran cross country a little bit, but I really never ran more, than 3, 4, 5 miles at a time. And I just decided, I don't know. I actually don't know why I decided I was going to run a marathon. And so I hadn't been running consistently. I live in Michigan, and in the wintertime it's cold and it's hard to run outside. So my birthday's in March. I decided around March, I think I'm going to run a marathon, and I started doing some research, and I decided that I was going to follow Hal Higdon's novice program, which is 16 to 18 weeks. I think it was 16 at the time. I just looked it up. It's 18 weeks now. And I was going to run the Philadelphia Marathon. So if you decided to go do a run and it's going to be epic like a marathon, I would encourage you to find some place that's not just easy to get to. I live in Detroit and there's a Detroit Marathon, but I wanted something like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go big. I want to go on a trip. I want to go see a new city. So I picked Philadelphia in November, and I basically got off the couch and started running. And in this program, which I thought was very good, and I will tell you I would have done something differently, not necessarily with the running part, with the days off where I wasn't running, because I think that's one of the reasons I didn't continue to run, because anyways, I'll talk about that later. But I followed this program, and it's very simple. You start off with a 2 to 3 mile run, and you do that 3 days a week. And then on the weekends, you do a long run. And you're just going to repeat this for 16 weeks. So it might look like you run 2 miles on Monday, you run 3 miles on Wednesday, you run 2 miles on Friday, Saturday, you run 4 miles. And then the next week you might do 3, 3, 3, 5. And then the next week is 3, 4, 3, 6. And you keep adding 10%, 20% on your long distance runs. And you just gradually work up until your longest run is a 20-mile run. And if you're not familiar, a marathon is 26.2 miles, which is very random. So obviously a half marathon is 13.1. And you just work your way up. You have some weeks where you go back a little bit, where you reduce your volume so you can train and recover. And I did it. I ran a marathon. And when I decided to run a marathon, I had a few goals. My goals were, 1, I wanted to finish the marathon and not quit. And 2, I wanted to run the entire time. I didn't want to walk. I don't know why I picked that, but I just thought it was important. I had no time that I needed. I wanted to complete it before the official end time was, which, if you ever enter a race, there is an official end time. So I wanted to run the entire time, and I didn't want to quit. And I started that. And so I was followed the program. I bet I was probably 85% compliant with the miles. There were some days where I had my son was born at the time. I didn't have my daughter yet. So there was a few, kind of back and forths a little bit where I can't do 3 miles a day, but I can do 4, or I can do 2. And I started this marathon program. I really enjoyed the consistency, the plan. And I, as I look back, I realized that I do the best when I have a plan. When I'm like, I know this, and this. I don't do well when I have random workouts. I don't do well if I'm just going to go for a walk. Maybe I'll run. I need to be told what to do even if it's just a piece of paper that I downloaded from the internet. I want to have a plan. And when you start doing hard things, when you decide I'm going to do something I've never done, I would highly encourage you to get a plan. And I buy lots of plans. I spend my own money on workout plans, on running plans, because I want to invest in that. And I think that's just a human nature. When you spend money on something, it becomes more valuable. So my first tip is, if you want to do a marathon or a half marathon, is invest in a plan, spend money, buy new shoes, get some training. Even when I started running, I probably had been going for a month, and I was suffering a little bit. I had gotten up, my long runs were about 6 miles. My knees were hurting, my hips were hurting, my shins were hurting. I thought, well, maybe I need new shoes. And I went to a running store, and it was a great experience. And I highly suggest, if you're going to spend, hundreds and hundreds of hours getting ready for something, you do a little preparation. So I went to this running store, and they had a treadmill, and they had a slow motion camera that would track your feet as they hit the ground, and whether you were striking with the front of your foot or the back of your foot. So I ran on the treadmill. They recommended these shoes, and it was a new idea to me. When I started running this marathon, which was around 2010-ish, maybe 9, 10, the barefoot running phase was kind of blowing up, and people were barefoot running. And in my head, I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. I read the book Born to Run, which was excellent. And I liked the idea of barefoot running. Like, after I learned about Born to Run and this idea of barefoot running, but it didn't make sense that I'm going to run on concrete like I would if I was running on grass. Well, when I went to this, the shoe store, they started talking about a 0-drop shoe and a different way of running. So what I learned is that lots of runners are heel strikers, meaning you hit your heel first and you roll forward onto the ball of your feet and then you take off. And because lots of us are heel strikers, we wear thick heeled shoes. So like your running shoe, the back of your shoe has a drop, or the front of your foot drops off. So you might have, like, let's say they do it in millimeters. You might have a 4 millimeter front of your shoe and a 6 millimeter in the back. That would be a 2 millimeter drop. So your foot is up a little bit. Well, because we have these awesome shoes that are super absorbent, or they have lots of thick cushion, we can heel strike, which is not the most efficient way to run. If you start looking at the research, when you're barefoot, you don't run this way because it hurts too much. Well, because we have the ability to create foam, people became heel strikers, or really our natural way we should run would be on the front or the balls of our feet. So they explained that. And I got these shoes called Ultras. They were 0-drop. They weren't barefoot though. So there was still padding, right? Because I'm running on concrete. Like, that's the part that didn't make sense to me. I'm like, okay, you got barefoot shoes, or no shoes, literally barefoot, and there's no padding, but you're running on concrete. I don't think, when we were chasing down antelopes and killing them with swords and spears, we were running on concrete. And that's probably how we ran barefoot. So I digress. So I got a 0-drop shoe, and these Ultras, they have a really wide toe box, which allow your feet to splay out, or your toes to splay out, meaning when you hit, your feet can spread out. They're not constricted. And the other thing you do is you run at a much faster cadence. So the way to think about how to correctly run, at least and I'm not an expert, but I did run a marathon, is you stand up nice and tall. You hold your hands like you were holding a piece of paper, about that far apart, and you lean forward. When you feel like you're going to fall, you take a step. That step should be your stride. So it's not you're not overstriding, but when you feel falling, you should catch yourself with your foot, and that is your stride. And then you should try to get to a pace where you're taking a footstep. Inside 1 minute, you're taking 180. So that's your cadence. Your cadence is fast. It's faster than most of us. So I had to speed up my cadence, which means I might be taking slightly shorter steps. I'm leaning forward. My hands are in this relaxed position, pretending I have a piece of paper. I'm falling forward. And basically, I'm falling forward the entire time, and I'm catching my body with my feet. And I'm landing on the front. My heels are hitting the ground, but they call it kissing the ground, where it's not a full-on strike, but your whole foot is hitting the ground, and that really made a difference. So getting some good training, spending some money on a training program was helpful. Realizing that your shoes are really, really important, and that's a good step towards getting towards a marathon. Some of the other things that I had to figure out with my marathon is nutrition and hydration. There's a fine line between drinking enough and eating enough, and like having to pee while you're out, or go to the bathroom while you're going out. You need to train what you're going to eat. You should be practicing what you're going to eat. Nutrition for a marathon is very important. Many of the people who, they call it bonking, or failing a marathon where they just can't run anymore, run out of nutrition. We can only keep so much calories. And then if you go too hard, you can't, like human beings, we can go several hundred miles on the amount of calories we have stored up, but that's at a very slow pace. If you're trying to run, then you need to be consuming calories while you're running, and you have to practice this. You have to know that on a moderately hot day, you need this much water, and you can actually you can actually weigh yourself. You weigh yourself, then you go for a run, you weigh yourself again, and you estimate, and you see how much weight you lost, and you estimate how much liquid that is. And you know that per hour rate, you need to drink this much at this temperature. And obviously if it's hotter, there's more liquid. If it's colder, maybe not as much, but you get to figure all these things out. And I actually really enjoyed that part. I enjoyed the strategy of, I'm going to do this. I'm going to run at this pace. I'm going to try to, I'm going to eat an energy bar at this mile marker. I'm going to try to get an electrolytes, not just water, at this one. I thought that was cool. And I really enjoyed the mental side of prepping, even to the point where like, what do you like? It was going to be in November in Philadelphia, and it was going to be cold. How do you stay warm waiting for the race? Now, in the race in Philadelphia, there was 40,000 people going to run this race between the half and the full marathon, which meant when the gun went off, it took us almost 20 minutes to walk to the start line and just walking, and it was cold. So I knew it was going to be cold. I got in line, and someone said, go to Goodwill, buy a cheap hoodie, and then when you start moving and you warm up, throw it away. Now, the race organizers understand people do this, and so they have these bins. I didn't throw it on the ground. I was actually able to donate it back. But you go to races, and there'll be people with North Face jackets that just tossed them because they were cold and didn't think, what am I going to do with it for the next 22 miles? So like, I really enjoyed the prep stage of that. And then I progressed, and this is where I had regret, and I would do it differently if I was going to run a marathon again. All I did for the next 16 weeks was run. At work, if I was at work, I would run my 3 or 4 miles on the treadmill. I didn't do any other exercise, and that was a mistake. One, as my job as a firefighter, I consider myself a tactical athlete, and I needed to be in shape to fight fires, because that's my profession, right? This running thing was a hobby. It wasn't what I was doing professionally, obviously. I wasn't even going to do it that good. And all I did was running. Now, I was capable of being a firefighter. I was able to do my job, but I lost some of the strength that I had prior to running. Now, I gained endurance. Like if you said, I need you to go run in a straight line for 2 hours, I could do that. But if I needed to deadlift 500, I've never been able to deadlift 500 pounds, but deadlift 300 pounds multiple times, I lost some of that. If you said, hey, I need you to move right or left aggressively, like you were playing basketball, I lost a little bit of that because I was locked into running straight. So if I was going to do it again, I would definitely supplement my running workouts, my rest days with some at least body weight exercises, if not full on weightlifting. Because I didn't get a well-rounded fitness. I got a running fitness, and I don't think that was necessarily good. Running has one of the highest injury rates of all sports because it is such a singular focused, and it's hard. Every time you hit the ground with your feet, that's energy being absorbed into your body, causing stress, causing pain, causing tightness. And if you're not doing other things to counteract that, to strengthen the muscles, the opposite muscles that you're using over and over and over again, it can be pretty bad. And it's really easy to get hurt running. And as you get to a certain point, when you first start, like running a certain distance is hard and you just can't do it. Like for me, there was mile markers, 3 miles was hard to get to. And once I got to 3 miles, I felt good. 4 was easy. 5 was easy. Getting past 6 seemed really hard. I finally got past 6 miles. 7, 8, 9 seemed easy, but getting past 10 felt hard. After 10 or 11, it really wasn't hard again until like 18, 19 miles, because I just think you get used to doing it, and your body physically gets used to doing it and moving, and you get really efficient at burning energy, which is very interesting. One of the reasons you're able to run a marathon and part of the training adaptation is that your body gets better at burning fuel. You actually get more efficient, which is good because you want to run a long ways. But this was a problem I had. When I was running, I could eat whatever I wanted without worry whatsoever. I wasn't gaining any weight. I was burning calories, but I was lowering my resting metabolic rate so that when I stopped running and I continued to eat like I did, I gained weight really fast because I had slowed down. I decreased my muscle mass. I had decreased the amount of muscle I had. And then I wasn't moving as much as I was because I slowed my running down, and I actually gained quite a bit of weight after my running. And I've talked to lots of people, and this is pretty common, where they're working. Their nutrition maybe isn't on point with meaning eating good calories because they can eat whatever they want and not gain weight. And that happened to me. And so if I would do it again, I would definitely try to increase or at least maintain my strength and my mobility. And I think I would have enjoyed the post running a lot more. Something to be ready for when you finally do go to do something big like a marathon or half marathon is when you're done, there is a feeling of of loss. You lose your purpose. You don't have a training plan anymore. You don't have this goal out in front of you anymore. And I wasn't depressed, but there's definitely something to be said about having the next thing ready. And I think you should take time off. I'm not saying that, go from one thing to the other, because you do need rest. You do need recovery. But there's something to be said about having the next thing, maybe 6 months in the future, knowing that you're going to take a month off to recover, do light work, and then move towards the next thing. And maybe the next thing is the opposite. So if you decide one year, I'm going to run a marathon, maybe the next year you decide I'm going to lift 1,000 pounds in powerlifting, which means you're going to lift 1,000 pounds between your bench, your back squat, and your deadlift. That's a good goal. And then while you're doing that though, I wouldn't just be lifting weights. I would maybe try to increase your 5K time or something with running. So you're kind of balancing that out. I didn't do that. And that's something I wish I would have had. I wish I would have had maybe an opposite goal of running to increase a different aspect of my strength or my fitness. I think that would be really helpful. I think you guys should get out and try to do something hard. Now, not everybody's designed to run. Now, if you are significantly overweight, I don't think you should run. And in fact, I don't run very consistently anymore. I do a lot more rucking where I'll put a backpack on with weight. I really enjoy that. I can still get out and move. I can still get out and go quite far distances. It doesn't feel as hard on my body. And I feel like on the strength side, there's a lot of benefits to rucking or walking with heavy weight. So that's what I'm currently doing. But I would encourage you to come up with something that's endurance based. It could be just rowing on your rowing machine for 4 hours. It could be riding a bike, nice low impact. It could be learning how to swim. Now I did other endurance events. I did several triathlons, and at one point I had thought, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do at least a half Ironman, maybe a full. And as I got into the training, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy swimming really. It wasn't awesome. I think because I wasn't good at it and I just didn't know how to get good at it, which maybe goes back to getting a coach, but I didn't enjoy triathlons. And I think you need to enjoy, if you can spend hours and hours and hours doing something, you need to enjoy at least some of it. And I wasn't enjoying it. So, I was experimenting with finding the things that I wanted to do. But yeah, go out there and try. Go out there and run a 5K and see how that feels. And then run a 10K, see how that feels. Then run a half marathon. One of the things I did that was very enjoyable is part of my training, I had to get up to a 20-mile long run. I did 18 miles in the Detroit Marathon as like a practice. I was going to be a relay. My relay section was like 6 miles, and I just ran with the next two people. I ran my 6, then their 6, and the last 5 or whatever it was. Great experience, running with friends. It was cool. I think you guys should do this. I think running a marathon or something that's hard from a endurance standpoint is a really good thing. And it allows you time to focus on one singular item for an extended period of time. I think that's a skill that's important. And it's hard. Running's really hard. There's a funny saying is that, hitting yourself in the head with a hammer and running have in common. They both feel really good to stop. So get out there, find something that's really hard. If you want some help, if you have a goal, like I want to run a marathon. Now, I'm not a marathon coach, right? But I can hold you accountable. I can get you started. I can guide you to the right direction. I want to do that. I want you to reach out. I'm going to leave my contact information in the show notes. I want to help coach you, hold you accountable. I really want to meet my audience. I want to meet the guys that are going out there and doing great things free of charge. I just want to connect. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, find my name or find my email in the show notes. Direct message me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I can't wait to meet you guys. My name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title podcast, and I will talk to you later. Bye.